Okay, here's a little study session for the Unit 1 test, just a sampling of problems that you may see on the Chapter 1 test, which we've already gone over. So if you're doing your study sheets, it might not be a bad idea to have some of these on there. So first we're going to find a linear equation to approximate the following set of data points. Show all your work clearly. Now on the test you actually have to graph these points and draw a line of best fit, but I would prefer that you use your calculator to go about finding the area, since that's the best way, the most accurate way. So go ahead and turn your calculators on. You're going to go to Stat, Edit. Okay, if there's any points in your list, you need to clear those points out by highlighting the list and hitting Clear and then Enter. And then type in all your x values into L1, 1, 4, 7, and 9. Okay, make sure you hit Enter after each value. And then type your y values into L2. Okay, once you have all your values entered in, just double check to make sure each x value has a y value. All right, then go ahead and second quit. We're going to go back to Stat. We're going to go over to Calculate, and we're going to calculate linear regression because it's asking us for the equation of a line. If it was something else, quadratic regression, I would let you know that. And then we're going to go ahead and calculate that. First, we got to tell it where to look. So L1, comma, L2, because that's where we entered our data. And then go ahead and hit Enter. And it gives us an equation for the line of best fit. Our slope will be 0.92. Our y-intercept is 2.997, which we could round to 3. So best case scenario here, y equals 0.92x plus 3. Now you could also do this by hand, calculate that equation, but maybe you just use the calculator to double check your work to make sure that what you did is correct. A second type of problem that you're going to get here on the test is find the inverse of g of x. Now there's a lot of ways to go about finding an inverse. I like switching x and y, resolving for y. So that's the way that I'm going to demonstrate. So x equals the square root of 2y minus 1. Now the only trouble with this is you have to know your rules of solving equations. A lot of people stumble during these particular steps. So first things first, we have to get rid of the square root by squaring both sides. I know some people would add 1 or divide by 2, but not yet. That's protected by the square root. So a square and a square root cancel out. So I have x squared equaling 2y minus 1. Now I'll go about solving this for y like any other equation. So I would add 1 to both sides. So x squared plus 1 equals 2y. And finally I would divide by 2. So my inverse of g is going to be x squared plus 1 all over 2. Okay. Another type of problem you're going to get on the test is function composition. So here it's asking for g of f of x. A lot of us struggle with this on the quiz. We're actually taking the function f and substituting it in place of the x's in function g. So my suggestion, again, is to write your function g with empty parentheses where your x's are. What's going to go in those empty parentheses? Well, that's where we substitute our equation for f, 3x minus 4. And then it says to simplify completely. So we begin the simplification process using using order of operations. So exponents come first. Now you cannot just distribute that square. You must either do the generic rectangle, okay, or you could do my square double square. So 3x squared is 9x squared. Double the product. The product here is negative 12. So doubling that would be negative 24x. Square the last number would be positive 16. Distributive property here. So that's 9x minus 12 and then minus 1. Now we combine like terms. 9x squared is the only x squared term. Okay, we have a negative 24x and a positive 9x. So together they would make negative 15x. We have a positive 16 minus 12 is 4, minus 1 is 3. So our final simplified answer would be 9x squared minus 15x plus 3. Moving on to a few other problems that will appear on the individual test for Chapter 1 is more algebra review. Find the equation of line that's perpendicular to y equals 3/4 x plus 7 and passes through the point -8, 4. Now on the test, you're going to have to write your equation in point slope form. Hopefully you have that written down on your study sheet. If you do not, it is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So perpendicular slope to 3/4 would be -4/3. Opposite reciprocals. Okay? And then you use the coordinate. -8, 4 for your x and y values. That 7 means nothing. Okay, so that means our y1 is going to be 4, our x1 is going to be -8. So when I substitute all of those in, I end up with y minus 4 equals -4/3 x plus 8. If you want to solve for y, you may do so. Just do not simplify beyond that point, because we want it to be in point slope form. And again, it will ask for that specifically on the test. Next, a little geometry review here. Given triangle ALG, ALG, where angle A is 47, angle G is 53, and side AG is 8, draw a diagram, roughly to scale. I'm not really worried about that. Okay, we have A, L, and G. They tell us angle A is 47. They tell us angle G is 53. Okay, and side AG is 8. All right, we need to solve the triangle completely here. So again, if it were me, I would make that list. A, L, G, side A, side L, side G. Okay, so fill in what we know. We know side L is 8. We know angle A is 47. And we know angle G is 53 degrees. That's centimeters. So, then we begin by finding anything that we can about this triangle. First of all, to use law of sines, we have to know a side and its opposite angle, which we currently do not know. The two angles that we have, okay, do not have opposite sides that are known yet. However, because we know two angles, that makes this problem a little easier. We can use the triangle angle sum theorem to find this third missing angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to add those two together and subtract them from 180. Okay, so 47 plus 53 is 100, which means angle L is going to equal 80 degrees. Now we can use law of sines because we have an angle and its opposite side. So I go about using law of sines here. I would say the sine of 80 over 8 is equal to the sine of 47 over A. And then I would cross multiply. I would not type that in my calculator yet. Okay, first I would just do this as A times the sine of 80 equals 8 times the sine of 47. And I would divide both sides by the sine of 80 first. So that way when I type this in my calculator, I only round once. So I have, make sure my mode, double check tomorrow that your mode is in degrees. Look at that, mine wasn't. My answers would have been wrong. And then I want to type in 8 times the sine of 47 divided by the sine of 80. Enter. And I get 5.94 for side A. Now a lot of people will be real quick to use Pythagorean theorem to find side G, but you cannot do that because it is not a right triangle. So we're going to have to repeat the law of sines process to find side G as well. Now the process is still the same, sine of 80 over 8, sine of 53 over G. Again, wait till the end to type it all in your calculator. And the cool thing about this is nothing changes here except for my 47 is now going to be 53 because I'm talking about side G. So if I do that, I can go ahead and enter, and I get a value of 6.49 for side G. Okay, 6.49 centimeters. Please make sure that you round all angles to the nearest tenth, all sides to the nearest hundredth. Also make sure you label all of your answers, whether it's centimeters or degrees. Last is part C. It says calculate the area. You have to have side angle side to do that. So we're going to have to use some values here from our original problem plus some values that we found. It doesn't matter which side angle side you use. So I know that side A is 5.94, angle G is 53, side L is 8. So if I do area equals 5.94 times 8 times the sine of 53, I will get my area. So 5.94 times 8 times the sine of 53 gives me an area of 37.95 centimeters squared. Make sure you label that answer. Please don't forget to do that part on the test. Calculate the area. A equals, oh, Mr. Warner, come on, knucklehead. 1/2 AB sine of C. So I got to multiply this by 1/2. Sorry about that. Losing my mind. So divide by 2. Area is 18.98. Okay, let's fix that. Area equals 18.98 centimeters squared. Again, that area formula is K equals 1/2 AB times the sine of C. So you have to have side angle side. Last for the study session here is converting from radians to degrees to radians. Now there's a lot of different ways to go about this. I gave you a proportion that I would always use. R over pi equals D over 180 because there's 180 degrees in pi radians. That way you can substitute what you know, find what you don't. We know radians, so we're substituting for R. 3 pi over 5 over pi equals D over 180. And then we cross multiply. Everybody and their cousin twice removed knows how to cross multiply. So D pi equals 180 times negative 3 pi over 5. Now you can simplify this however you'd like. You could do 180 divided by 5 first, okay, if you wanted to. All right, so 180 divided by 5. All right, we get 36 times 3 is 108. So I end up with D pi equaling 108 pi. The pi's cancel. So D is 108 degrees. You can have decimals here. Decimals are okay for degrees. D, degrees, D, decimals, okay. Don't have to worry about it here because it's a whole number. Now, radians, we cannot have decimals. We want to keep pi in our answer. Okay, nobody ever wants to give up a piece of pi, so we're going to keep it in our answer. So R over pi is going to be equal to 250 over 180. Now, if you wanted to reduce this before you even started, that would help make your number smaller. That's an easy reduction. The zeros go away. Cross multiply. All right, so I get 25 pi equals 18R. Divide by 18. So radians equals 25 pi over 18. Now, you want to reduce this fraction as far as you can, but we want to keep pi in the answer. Well, how do we go about doing that? Go to your calculator, type in 25 divided by 18. Do not type pi in. Hit enter. Change that math fraction to a fraction. If it's the same, then that you have your final answer. If it's different, then that's the reduced form. 25 pi over 18 is the equivalent of 250 degrees. And here ends the study session.